Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed part one of this video series where we showed you how to detect someone stealing mangoes from a mango tree and then saturate them with a lawn sprinkler. In this part of the video, or in the second video, I'm going to be covering how things work under the covers. All the components that are involved and how they're all set up, so hopefully you guys can get something out of this and maybe you can do something similar at your own houses. So, that said, let's get into it. So what you're looking at right now is an off-the-shelf plain Jane Dahua IP security camera. You can pick these up on Amazon for between 80 and 110 bucks if they're on sale. And really the only camera requirement is that the camera needs to be able to, one, detect motion, that is, something in the scene has changed, and it needs to be able to take snapshots of that motion. And I'll show you how you do this on this particular camera. So most Dahua cameras have a very similar user interface, and other brands are probably similar as well. On Dahua, you want to go to the Settings tab up here, then Event, then Video Detection. Then you'll see this motion detection. Your user interface might be a little bit different. Not all of them have this IVS and face detection and whatnot. And you can actually take aftermarket or rebranded Dahua cameras and add this functionality. I covered that in another video. But anyway, you want to turn the motion detection on by clicking Enable. And then if you want to only have it monitor a certain region for motion, you can do that. So this red area is a region that I told it to monitor for motion. You don't have to do this, but you can. So after you turn on motion detection, you want to go over to Storage, then Destination, and in this Path tab, you want to select where you want the video recordings and the snapshots to be recorded. In this case, we're using NAS, but you could just as easily use FTP. And then once you do that, you want to head over to the NAS tab and tell it how you want to record those snapshots on the NAS. Do you want to use the NFS, or the Network File System Protocol, that's native for Unix and Linux boxes, or do you want to use SMB, which is native to Windows? Either way will work. It's purely up to you how you want to set this up and what your local infrastructure looks like. I just happen to have a Linux box sitting behind me that has an NFS server running, so that was easiest for me, but your mileage may vary. And a lot of other camera manufacturers like Hikvision and I suspect even some of the more common brands like the Ring probably have similar features to allow you to record this. And really that's the only requirement. The camera must be able to detect motion and record a snapshot. That's it. It could be any brand, doesn't really matter. If you need a camera recommendation, there's really lots of them out there, but the ones that I tend to use are these right here. It's an Amcrest. It's an IP8M T2499EW. I covered these in another video. These are actually Dahua cameras that are white labeled and sold to Amcrest, but you can easily flash the Dahua firmware to them to give them more capabilities like that face detection and so on. I haven't found it really works that well, but they're pretty good cameras. They're a very high quality picture. They have that Sony Starvis sensor, so you get really good night vision. And like I said, they're usually about 110 bucks, but they often go on sale for like $79.99, so just keep an eye out for sales. Good cameras, I like them a lot. Once you have your camera installed and set up, you're going to want to head over to jdiflowbot.com and you can register for a free trial. And this software is really where the magic occurs. So I'm just going to log in here. And what you want to do first off is to go over, we don't want to remember our password yet. So you want to go over to Data Sources and Agents on the left. You want to download the agent for whatever platform you happen to be running on. I'm going to download the agent for Windows x64. We'll save that. Okay, so the Flowbot agent has finished downloading. We're just going to extract the zip file using the zipping software that's built into Microsoft Windows. And the agent is the piece of software that sits on your local infrastructure and tells Flowbot in the cloud about what's going on there. And what do I mean by that? So the agent, for example, can monitor, say, an FTP site or your NAS server and detect new files that may appear there. And that's kind of the theme that's going throughout all this, is that we enable the motion detection of the camera, we save snapshots of that motion on our NAS, and then we use the Flowbot agent to monitor the NAS and tell Flowbot in the cloud about those new snapshots that appear there. And we'll get into that shortly. While the agent is downloading, I just want to talk to you a little bit about what Flowbot is. And full disclosure, Flowbot is a product that I've been working on at work for a long time, so I do have a vested interest in this product, but just want to give you guys a little bit of insight as to what it is and what it does. So Flowbot is kind of a configurable workflow engine, and we've been spending a lot of time the past several months working on IoT-enabled functionality. So Flowbot was designed to recognize things like, okay, after an image is recorded from a camera, I then want to send a text message, I want to then send an email, or I want to generate a file and send it to some other system. So Flowbot allows all those things to happen without actually writing software and spending a lot of time and money doing all that. So if you're interested about learning more about Flowbot, you can go to flowbot.jdidata.com or send me a private message. I'd be happy to talk to you more about it. But again, this video isn't really about Flowbot, it's about solving this problem. So we'll get back to setting up the agent in just a moment. Before we set up the Flowbot agent, we're going to need some information from Flowbot itself. So log back into Flowbot, click your name up at the top right, and go to About. You're going to need this tenant access key right here. This is what the agent uses to communicate with Flowbot and uniquely identify you in addition to your username and password. So you're going to copy this to the clipboard, and you're just going to leave it there for just a moment. We're going to open one of the configuration files for the Flowbot agent. Now that you have that tenant access key in your clipboard, you want to go back to where you extracted the Flowbot agent, and you want to open this appsettings.json file in your favorite text editor. Could be Notepad, could be Notepad++, really anything, it doesn't matter. Whatever you're comfortable with. Okay, you got that app settings file opened. You want to paste your tenant access key right here. You want to put your Flowbot username and password right here, your email at gmail.com, whatever the case may be, and your password here. Now your password must be encrypted for security reasons here, so you can't just type your plain text password in here. Flowbot does have an encryption utility built in. I'll show you how to do that in just a second. So now back to Flowbot, if you go to System and Utilities, Encrypter, this allows you to encrypt your text. So if your password is something1, encrypt your text, copy to clipboard, and then you can paste it in that app settings file. So we'll paste our encrypted password right here, and then we'll put the URL to the cloud-hosted version of Flowbot. The reason why this option exists, I won't go into too much detail, but Flowbot supports a cloud-hosted hosting model and also a self-hosted hosting model where a customer can host Flowbot on their infrastructure. So now that we've got that, now we go down to our listeners, and we talked a little bit about this earlier. We have a file system listener option, like if you wanted to monitor, say, c:\temp. We also have an FTP listener that supports SFTP, FTPS, and FTP. I mentioned before that the computer behind me, that Linux box, we're saving our motion snapshots in JPEG format onto an NFS server on that Linux box behind me. I've also set up an SFTP server that looks at that very same location. So all we need to do now is enter the login credentials for our SFTP server that we want to monitor. Go on ahead and fill out all the details for my SFTP server, and just to walk you through these settings here, again we have our protocol, SFTP for secure FTP, the host name of the SFTP server, my username, my encrypted password, the port number, 22 is a standard SFTP port, the path on that SFTP server that we want to monitor, and this needs to be the path where those snapshots are being saved from your camera. So obviously we want to make sure we monitor the snapshots that are being saved. And the file name pattern that we want to check. So in this case, my camera is saving JPEG files, so I do star.jpg. This setting right here, which I set to true, tells the Flowbot agent that I want you to search this directory right here and any directories within. So it'll recurse all those directories that may exist there. Just going through. If there's any certificate errors, like such as if you have a self-signed certificate, we'll ignore those. This setting indicates how often we should check for new files in here. We don't want to check every second or maybe every 5 minutes. Whether or not we want to look for changes to directories, that is, directories being created, directories being deleted, so on. Whether or not we want to check for file changes, and obviously in this case we do. And now down here, this is kind of a unique feature for the Flowbot agent. What we can actually do on your infrastructure is we can use a machine learning algorithm called YOLO that will analyze that image, that snapshot that the camera took, and look for people in that image. Right? So we can say, all right, I want you to look at every file, star.jpg, and look for things that are recognized as a person. And then we can only say we want to queue events for Flowbot only when we find an object of interest, right? So queue event for image without object of interest, we set that to false. So if we don't find a person, we don't queue an event, and we don't bother Flowbot. So that's really all you have to do here. There's a lot of other options in here, as you can see. We can interact with the Raspberry Pi. We can listen to Microsoft Exchange and so on, but we won't get into that. That's kind of out of scope. We're just focused on this SFTP listener. Now you're almost done, I promise. Before you can run the Flowbot agent and get started, you need to make sure you have the .NET Core Runtime, specifically .NET Core 3.1. It's a free download. It's been around for a while. It's made by Microsoft. You can get it at this URL here. I could put a link in the description for you too. So download and install this for your platform of choice. If you're running Windows, there should be links to Windows. Let's see, you probably want this one right here, either x64 or x86. I'd recommend x64. You don't need the SDK, just the runtime. Now you want to open a DOS or command window, focus to the directory where you extracted the Flowbot agent earlier, and that's also the same place where that app settings file is located. And you want to run this command right here. And if you configured everything properly, when you run it, you should see a bunch of text go by. Flowbot will spend a few minutes and download, the Flowbot agent will spend a few minutes and download some machine learning model files. This might take several minutes. These files are very large, so please just be patient here. So we'll come back once these files are finished downloading. Before we log into Flowbot, I just wanted to point out this useful feature and helpful feature with the Flowbot agent. Once it first starts, after you run this .NET command to run the agent, it outputs all the stuff that it supports. So notice here that our listener, the FTP event listener that we set up in our app settings file, it will queue an on directory contents changed event in Flowbot. So that means whenever we get a new snapshot from one of our cameras, we will see this on directory contents changed event queued in Flowbot. Now we log back into Flowbot and we can see here this after a directory contents change right here, whose name is on directory contents changed. So when the agent queues this on directory contents changed event, when it sees a new snapshot from the camera, it's going to execute any tasks in Flowbot that are associated with this event. So what we're going to do now is we're going to click on View Journey and we're going to set up what we want Flowbot to do when that occurs. So this is what the screen looks like after clicking on View Journey. So you click this little green button here to create a task, and a journey is composed of one or more tasks, and a task can be one or more actions. So let's do process image, hit save. And now that we have our empty task here, we're going to click this red button here to add one or more actions to this task, and we can sequence them in whatever order we want. So here is a list of the actions that Flowbot comes with out of the box. And in this demonstration, we'll be using send an email, send a text message, invoke a REST API, and optionally analyze an image. Now you saw me, when I set up the agent, configure YOLO, which is that machine learning algorithm that can do object detection in an image. Well, Flowbot in the cloud also has some options to analyze images as well. We have an analyze image, which uses Amazon's recognition service, and we also have analyze an image light, as we call it, that uses YOLO as well. So you can have image processing on the edge using the Flowbot agent, or you can have image processing in the cloud, or you could have both, whatever works best for you. Let's go set up the send a text message action. By default, Flowbot uses a company called Twilio as our text messaging partner. A number of fields on this screen are going to be provided to you by Twilio once you create your account with them. So I'll identify those as we go through those. Let's just give it a unique name and code. The sender phone number is one of those things that will be given to you by Twilio. And the recipient phone number is obviously the phone number who you want to receive the message. And the message body is the message you want to send. I see a person near your mango tree. Go look. Proper grammar. And the account SID and the authorization token are also pieces of information that will be given to you by Twilio. So let's just fill this with dummy values for now, and we'll click Save. So now you see here we have our text message action set up here. Now let's do the same thing. We'll set up the send email action. But before we do that, we need to set up an email template. Flowbot is all template based, so if you want to set up a template for sending an email, for generating a document, that's all done in the template section. So let's go in there and set something up. So click templates over here on the left. Now we're going to click the plus sign here, and we'll give the template a name. CA Mango Thief. Our template type is email, where it's going to be an HTML template, and we're going to be generating an HTML file as a result. There is a person near your mango tree. Go chase them away. So we'll save this, and now this template will be available for selection when we use our send an email action. Okay, we're back at our journey and our task. Let's go click the add action button, and this time we'll pick send an email. Email Josie, similar to the send a text message action. And we'll send this to somewhere@gmail.com. I see a mango thief. So this is your email subject, and we'll pick that template we just created. I see a mango thief right there. And now this option here is important. So the on directory contents changed event that is queued by the Flowbot agent actually sends the image that it found to Flowbot. So you can actually attach that snapshot, that image snapshot, to the email. So if you click this box, you'll see that. And in fact, you saw it in part 1 of this video. So now we have both our text message and email actions set up. Now that we have our 2 notification actions set up, now we want to set up our action to turn the sprinklers on. And I mentioned in part 1 that I use a Rain Machine smart sprinkler timer, and that conveniently has a REST API that we can interact with. And Flowbot coincidentally has an Invoke a REST API action. So we're going to click that. Now the Rain Machine is going to require 2 of these, one to authenticate and one to actually turn on the sprinkler zone. So I'm going to show you both of them. So I pre-filled this Invoke a REST API action with the Rain Machine authentication request. Now this may be different. If you have a different smart sprinkler timer like Ratio or one of the other ones in the market, this will be totally different, but they all likely have a REST API you can interact with. All this stuff is specific to whatever brand and type of timer you have though. So these are just the details for Rain Machine. So the base URL is my.rainmachine.com, and we want to access the login /login/auth endpoint. We're going to be doing an HTTP post with this JSON here. So you need to give them your email address and your password, and they're going to give you back these data, what we call response data keys, called access token and sprinkler ID, and they're going to be used in the next action. I set up the next instance of Invoke a REST API to actually turn on the sprinklers, and again, all Rain Machine specific, but this is how it works. So you make a call to api.rainmachine.com using that sprinkler ID and access token from the previous authentication step. And anything in these 2 braces like here, the open and close braces like this, Flowbot interprets those as variables. So those response data keys that we got back from the authentication request, Flowbot now stores in its memory as variables that can be used in subsequent actions. That's a pattern we carried throughout the whole system. So the endpoint that we're calling is that sprinkler ID variable, and we're going to be starting zone 4. That's the zone number for my sprinklers that are by my mango tree. Yours may be different, maybe 1, maybe 2, depends upon your setup. And then you just simply supply the access token again from the previous authentication step. The only thing you need to send in the request body is the amount of time in seconds that you want the sprinklers to be turned on for. Again, this is in seconds. So once we click save, anytime the agent detects an image containing a person, because again, we're doing the image analysis on the edge, on the agent in this case, Flowbot will send a text message, send an email, authenticate with Rain Machine, and then issue a request to turn on the sprinklers, in this case zone 4. And that's really all you have to do, and I haven't written any code to do this, which is kind of cool. It only took a couple minutes. You could do the same thing on your end too. A couple of other points I'd like to cover. So if you decided not to do the image processing on the edge in the Flowbot agent, and you wanted to do that inside Flowbot, you could simply add an analyze image action or analyze image action light and configure it. So So let's just walk you through that process here. Now, in this action, we use Amazon's recognition service. So to use that, Amazon will give you an AWS access key, a secret key, and a region. So simply supply the values that Amazon gives you in these three fields. Now you have to tell the action what you're looking for. Namely, what objects do you want to detect? So now the way this action works is it kicks back objects in the form of object name and count. It kicks back data keys in the form of object name count. So if you want to search for a person, it'd be person count. If you want to search for a vehicle, it'd be vehicle count, and so on. So we'll click save. So we're just going to search for people in this example. And then we need to tell it which image to analyze. And you can select any file producing action in the sequence prior to this action. So right now this action is just for demonstration purposes going to show up last in the sequence, which is why you see these. But you need to tell it which action's image you want to analyze. And that's going to be the image that was supplied with the event queuing after a directory contents change. So we're going to click save here after we fill out these required fields with the dummy value. So now when this runs, it's going to send AWS the image that was captured by the camera. AWS is going to analyze it and return the count of people that it finds in there. Okay, I resequenced the actions a little bit just again for demonstration purposes to show you the other way to do this, that is to do the processing in the cloud. I put the analyze image action first, and I sequenced the other actions that we created earlier after that. So now what we'll do is add a condition that says we're only going to execute these actions if this returns person count greater than 1. So I've expanded the email Joe C action. I'm going to click this plus arrow here for plus icon here to add a condition. And we're going to find the person count field. And we're going to find the greater than operator. We're going to do 0. So that means this action, email Joe C, is only going to execute if person count, which is populated by the analyze image action, is greater than 0. So all you have to do is just replicate the same condition on every other action here. So I've gone ahead and I've replicated that person count greater than 0 action to all the other actions that you saw here. And really in a couple minutes, and with literally no code writing, I've integrated systems from 3 or 4 different vendors under one umbrella with relative ease. You know, we have a DAWA security camera talking to an Amazon cloud service that is now turning on a yet another vendor sprinkler product. So it's pretty cool what this can do, and this is just an example. So hopefully you found this video series helpful. If you have any questions about Flowbot, or if you have any cool use cases you'd like to see me set up, just let me know. Leave it in the comments. Thanks guys, and if you like the content, please subscribe.